Okay. So we are, as you guys knew, we're kind of doing graduation Sunday, and so as I was thinking through that, I was thinking through a bunch of different things, and so you'll have to bear with me for a moment as I kind of pull these things together. I was thinking about it. I figured it up. I graduated 24 years ago from high school. It seems really weird to say that. But I still remember those moments in graduation. Like, I had my plan, right? I had my plan. I was going to go to Indian Hills. I was going to study graphic design, and then I was going to graduate, and I was going to be a graphic artist, and the world was going to be good, right? Like, everything, I had this plan, but I still had a lot of anxiety because I understood that the building that I had gone to for 4 years and the people that I had interacted with for longer than 4 years, and the teachers that I had built relationship with, that I had seen every day through the week, through the school year, I was no longer going to have that. And so to move into a situation, even knowing what that situation is and choosing that, like, it still had anxiety. There was still that anxiety in it. And so to step into this next chapter of my life was new, it was exciting, but yet there was still anxiety that came along with that, and I'm sure that you guys that have gone through that can remember that as well. As I said, I had plans for what my life was going to look like. I was going to go to Indian Hills for 2 years. I was going to graduate with a degree. I was probably going to go on to, I think when I first graduated, I thought Indian Hills and then I'll figure it out. But I was kind of leaning towards the University of Northern Iowa. And so we kind of have these plans in place. I kind of had these plans in place, and then I switched. So I was going graphic design my first year, and then I switched to art education, and then I graduated Indian Hills, and I met Adam, and so I never went on to continue on my education degree. And so it's like the world changed so drastically than what I had it planned and set out for. My once black and white world, where I was like, this is what I'm going to do, this is where I'm going to be in 4 years, this is what's going to happen after that, I realized quickly that there needed to be gray, that I needed to be able to work around situations when they didn't necessarily happen the way that I expected them to. And as much as my parents had tried to prepare me for those situations, right? There's no amount, I don't think there's an amount of preparation that can truly happen until you're in those situations and you're living through them. And then you just have to go, Mom, Dad, can you talk me through this, right? And so there's a lot of anxiety that comes into graduation, and I understand that, and I think we all understand that our lives haven't necessarily always gone according to plan, but in those moments of anxiety, I know that God is with us and continuing to guide us, and that's kind of where what we're going to talk about today. When I think about graduation, one of the first stories that kind of pop into my mind through the biblical text is when Joshua leads the Israelites into the promised land, right? Because Joshua in his life would have heard all about the promised land. He would have known where it is, what it looks like, all that stuff. I don't think Joshua had realized when he first started hearing about this that he was going to be one of the ones that led the Israelites into the promised land. I'm sure there was a lot of anxiety that went on about that. But I wanted to read today in the first chapter of Joshua, the verses 7 through 9, where where God's talking to Joshua. And to kind of set this up, I mean, most of us know the story of Moses and Joshua and the leading out of Egypt and all that, but so the Israelites went to Egypt to work and to settle and all that, and then they were enslaved. They started to grow in population. There started to be more Israelites, and so the Pharaoh decided to enslave them. And so they're working and working and working and having hard working conditions. They had some years, I guess, where you could say it wasn't as bad. I don't know. But then it gets worse and worse and worse, and God's people go, Lord, don't you hear us, right? And so then Moses is raised up. He talks to the burning bush, and God says, you're going to lead my people out of Egypt. And Moses eventually leads the people out of Egypt, but the Israelites, they're a stubborn people, right? Like, they're a stubborn people, and they do wrong things, and Moses is like, arr. This is this is like a Sunday school lesson. I just want to make sure that we're caught up to speed. There's a lot of nuances that go on into this. So Moses is frustrated, and Moses takes the wrong step. And God says, Moses, the people, the next generation are going to go into the promised land, but you are unable to. And so Joshua steps into this role. And so Joshua is leading this next generation of Israelites. He's leading the next generation of Israelites into the promised land, something that he's heard about all his life, but they'd been wandering 40 years in the desert, right? And so he's heard about this, and I don't think that Joshua would have gone, oh yeah, I'll do that, right? It was kind of a God-ordained thing. But Moses helps to feed into Joshua and to get him prepared to lead the people into the promised land. Who better than Joshua? And I say that, and you guys are like, oh, okay, who better than Joshua? But Joshua in the Hebrew is Yahshua, which means God is our salvation. And in the Hebrew and the Greek, it is very similar to the name Jesus. So when I say, who better to lead us than Joshua, it's who better to lead us than someone that's so close to Jesus, right? So Moses, as I said, he comes to this point. He knows that he can't lead them into the promised land because God has already said that you're not going to lead them into the promised land. And Moses comes to a point where he knows he's going to die, and he passes off the reins of leading the Israelites to Joshua. And in this very first book where we're going to read today, this very first chapter of Joshua, we have God speaking. We read the directions that God gives to Joshua about where God's going to take him and what is going to happen. And then God says this to Joshua. So we're going to start in verse 7 in chapter 1. Be strong and very courageous. Be careful to obey all the law my servant Moses gave you. Do not turn from it to the right or to the left, that you may be successful wherever you go. Keep this book of the law always on your lips. Meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to do everything written in it. Then you will be prosperous and successful. Have I not commanded you, be strong and courageous? Do not be afraid, do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Joshua is facing, I'm sure, what seems to be this huge task. And maybe in some instances in the last 40 years, Joshua hasn't, obviously he was born in the generation out in as they were wandering the desert. But in that I'm sure that Joshua was looking at this situation and going, I don't know. I mean, this seems like it's almost hopeless. Moses had problems with the Israelites. Why won't I have problems with the Israelite? Moses wasn't able to enter into the promised land. Why do you think that I'm going to have the brain power to do that? Like, why do you think that this is something that I could do? I'm sure there was a lot of anxiety over the promised land, as I said. Joshua's heard about this for years, but now he's the one that is going to take the Israelites into the promised land. And as we think about that, it is no wonder that God told Joshua 3 times to be strong and courageous, right? Because this task may seem like it is unachievable. I assume Joshua had a lot of anxiety growing in these moments. Sometimes, because even sometimes when we know where we're going and what we're doing, and we've prepared and we know what this is going to look like, there can still be a growing anxiety within us, right? And so God tells Joshua, be strong and courageous. Don't let your anxiety about this situation control you, right? Like, stay in the Word. Remember that I'm with you this whole time. Don't look to the left or to the right. Stay in your Word. Keep your eyes on God, right? And don't let your anxiety take control of you. Because if you do, you're not going to be prosperous. And that's what God's speech is, an undercurrent of this speech that's going on. And I get it. In those kinds of situations, it's a lot easier said than done to not let your anxiety take control of the wheel, right? Emotions such as anxiety are something that we are all going to feel, right? But something that Joshua didn't realize was that he couldn't let that emotion control him. He couldn't let it take control of his life. And God knew that he would be facing these emotions because God continued to say, be strong and courageous. You may feel afraid and anxiety's here, but here's what I want you to do. Be strong and courageous. Don't look to the left. Don't look to the right. Continue to follow where I've asked you to go, and you will be prosperous and successful. Be strong and courageous. I, God, will be with you the whole way. Listen to my voice. Follow my lead, right? As I thought about that what God was saying, I thought about a humorous story that I'm going to tell you guys real quick. There is one year that we went on vacation and we went to Disney World. And that was the year that we went with Pastor R.J. Montes and his family and the Jackson family. And we all went to Disney World. And it was great. But Adam is very much a schedule person. When he goes to meetings, he likes a little layout, the little layout of the agenda. And so when we went on vacation that year, Adam had a little schedule of when we were going where and what we were doing. And I mean, it's not just a schedule like, oh yeah, we're going to do this first and this first, second. And he had it down to the minute. Like, we have 54 minutes and 11 seconds. He's smiling back there because he knows. We have 54 minutes and 11 seconds to eat our lunch. That's it. And then we have to be at this ride at this time. And it will take us this long to ride this ride. And then we have to, right? I know. We all had the same reaction. We went, what? Are you kidding me? He had put so much time into this. And he had like the walks down too. That's another thing. Like he was like, it should take us 2 minutes and 12 seconds to walk from this place to this place. Like he had it down to the second of what we were supposed to do. It was crazy. And we all the other adults just kind of went, Okay, Adam. Like, we did not follow the schedule. And so as I think about this, I think about the situation with Joshua and what God's saying to him. Like, I really, truly believe that God, as much as I kind of dislike saying this, I feel like God has this all measured out, and Joshua needs to stick to the schedule, right? Like, he needs to stick to the schedule, and he needs to go in the places where God is asking him to go when God is asking him to do it. Now, I like to have a plan, but I'm not a down to the minute or second kind of girl. I see the beauty of going wherever it is that God's taking me, and understanding that sometimes, even though I have a plan, there might be other places where God wants me to go. And so I've got to be able to do that. But I feel like in this situation, God's really trying to tell Joshua, don't vary from the schedule that I have for you, this down to the minute kind of thing. You've got to go where it is that I'm asking you to go. Don't take steps out. And I understand that there is importance to sometimes a schedule like that. Not necessarily when you go to Disney World, but there is importance to that. And there's importance to having confidence in where God is asking you to go, right? Like, there's an importance to having that confidence, knowing God wants me to go here, and he wants me to go here, and he wants me to go here. And there's this confidence in understanding that. I was talking to another pastor yesterday, and I said, I will always have confidence in my call to pastoral ministry because of the way that God called me. Like, no one could ever convince me that God didn't call me, because the way that he did it there was no question. There was a confidence in that. And there should be a confidence in our actions when we go where it is that God's asking us to go. Even when there's maybe anxiety in that, we can still go, I'm going to confidently take this next step, because I'm confident that's where God has called me. But something that we don't necessarily always talk about in church, something that's also important to this whole thing, and we'll kind of come around to this, is that there were people that were filling into Joshua. There were people that, like Moses, who was filling into Joshua. Community is important. These seniors are going out and they're going to go to college. But here's the thing. We as a church community, we go, these are our seniors, right? But we as a church community need to continue to fill into these kids. These seniors, into our other teens, into the kids that are in this church, and to where they can get to the point where when they step out, they know they have confidence because they have people behind them going, yes, that's where God's wanting you to go. You go for it. We're right here. We're with you. God's with you too. One of the reasons that Joshua was successful in this is because of Moses' leading. Moses wasn't perfect. We understand that. Moses wasn't perfect, but he poured into Joshua. Others around us pouring into us is important, just like Moses poured into Joshua. And we as a church should continue to pour into not only these teenagers and not only these kids that come to our church. That's important, but we also need to pour into other people in our lives, right? We need to be able to have so much that we pour into other people. We should pour into our family. We should pour into our friends. We should pour into our neighbors. This positiveness from our lives, because we're continuing to follow God and we have this hope, right? We're supposed to be prisoners of hope. So we pour into others this hope that we have. And we should pour into others, and I'm going to say this, it's important to pour into the next generation, right? It's important to pour into them. I mean, we can pour into people that are older than us too, but I think it's really important when we pour into, as church people, when we pour into other generations, when we pour into the next generation. And as I was thinking about this, I found this quote, like thinking about this whole idea of generations and generations and generations. And I think about my kids and how I've tried to pour into them enough that they have the confidence to step out and do the things that maybe I didn't have the confidence to step out and do, right? That they feel empowered, that they know that God's with them, and that they can go wherever it is that God's asking them to go. I found this quote from Ronald Reagan, and it kind of comes into what it is that this idea that I'm trying to show us this morning. Ronald Reagan said, "Each generation goes further than the generation preceding it because it stands on the shoulders of that generation. You will have opportunities beyond anything we've ever known." He was talking to that next generation. The church, as a community, we should desire success for everyone that goes to this church and for those around us. We should champion for it. We should champion for their success. We should continue to pour into them. We should continue to just pour and pour and pour, especially into those younger generations, right? We should continue to pour in. One of the reasons why when we had our baptisms, right, and when we had the dedication, I told you guys as a church, I said, you guys need to help pour in to these kids. That's part of what a church does, is just continue to pour in. It's part of why Joshua had the success that he did, is he had people pouring into him. When I think about all of this, in this encapsulation of Joshua and the promised land and all of that, I really, I felt, God, I just felt like I needed to bring up this prayer that God had told Moses to tell Aaron to give. And before we say, if you look at this prayer in your biblical text, it'll say, the pastoral prayer or something along that lines. And they said, yes, Aaron was supposed to speak this prayer over people, right? Aaron, who was in the temple, he was supposed to speak this prayer over this. But part of this prayer is this priestly blessing. And if we remember, we can't just say, well, this is just what pastors are supposed to say. We are part of the priestly kingdom, right? Like we are part of the kingdom of priests as Christians. So this is what pastors are supposed to say to people. This is what we're supposed to say to people. So this prayer is not just something that Aaron was supposed to say or that Aaron's sons were supposed to say. This is something we're supposed to say with our lives. This is how we pour into people. This prayer is in Numbers. So as they were coming through, having their census, which is why it's called the book of Numbers. They had their census at the beginning and at the end. But in the middle, in chapter 6, we have this what God said to Moses. Adam, go ahead and put that up. The Lord said to Moses, "Tell Aaron and his sons, this is how you are to bless the Israelites. Say to them, the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face towards you and give you peace." We, as a kingdom of priests, as a holy nation, us coming into this, we should pray this blessing on others. Lord bless you and keep you. Make his face shine upon you. May God smile towards you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face towards you and give you peace. And we should be able to pray that for people, over people, no matter what. Even when they've gotten under your skin, right? Even when they've said something and you're like, I don't even think you know what you just said. We should still be able to pray this blessing. Lord, bless you and keep you. May his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. We shouldn't ever get to a point that we can't say that about someone. And that's part of that pouring in, is praying blessings on other people and being happy when we see this all play out and they have success in their lives, right? That is part of this being a kingdom of priests and a holy nation, is pouring into others. I continue to pray that we as a church will continue to pour into others. Specifically, younger generations, that we pour in, right? But this is graduation Sunday. We're thinking about the younger generations, that we continue to pour into those younger generations so that they will see success in their lives, so that they will continue to see success and continue to see God working in their lives, and they can take those steps out in confidence, knowing that that's where God's taking them. And so I pray we as a church just continue to be that. Continue to pour in. I'm going to invite Samantha up. I requested this last song of the blessing. We've sang it before, but I requested that we sang this as the last, because this is our prayer, right? To put it to song, you remember it. And one of the reasons why I can continue to say this priestly blessing is because of this song that Carrie Job sang. So let's offer this up as a prayer, not only over our seniors, right, but over the younger generations. Let's offer this up as a prayer today through our worship to all those in this room and outside this room. And we just say, Lord, bless, Lord, I pray the Lord blesses and keeps you, that his face smiles upon you, that he's gracious to you, right? Let's go ahead and sing this song together.